saying this because I'm getting carried away. Viewers, I'm only echoing what the Prime Minister of India has said, and he's not given to exaggeration. The Prime Minister today, in an impassioned but very measured speech, extremely mission-focused speech, extremely piercing address to the nation, has said that we've established a new normal, that Operation Sindoor has established a new normal. Even 1971, which was an undoubtedly famous victory for India, remember viewers, was not against a nuclear-tipped Pakistan. What the Prime Minister of India today, viewers, Narendra Modi has done, has never been done by any other leader of a nation in the modern military era. And this was not possible, viewers, without the resolve of 1.4 billion Indians. Now, there are a few, viewers, who struck a discordant note, but we'll talk about them later. Viewers, in 1971, if people say we went further, we broke Pakistan, it was because, viewers, we could, because Pakistan was not a nuclear weapons power that, if threatened with extinction, would have decided to commit a kind of harakiri and taken down vast chunks of humanity. Pakistan, viewers, at that time was in fact facing a mutiny on its own soil, which made it much easier to bring about a vivisection. And that's why, viewers, the Prime Minister's address has confirmed that India has redefined the rules of engagement between nuclear powers and has announced itself as arguably the #1 military in the world today. All these Americas, viewers, these British, I'm sorry to even say the Israelis, they have never fought a country with nuclear weapons. Yes, they have fought proxy wars, viewers, propping up somebody against somebody else. But viewers, they've never even fought China. Hand to hand. India has. These people don't have the experience, viewers, to take on a nuclear weapons power. Now, I'm not saber-rattling, viewers. It's chilling when you think about it. Two nuclear weapons powers up against each other. Mutually assured destruction is what we were told would be the outcome. And if you condense these words, abbreviate them, it comes to mad. You have to be mad, viewers, to go in for a conflict like this. But what do you do? What do you do when justice has to be served? When deterrence has to be established? This is uncharted waters. But the Prime Minister, through his resolve, has shown us what can be done. And remember, viewers, with him stood the military. The primary salute tonight must go to the military. Viewers, to put it simply, the Prime Minister's speech clearly suggests that over the last few days we witnessed history forged in fire and resolve. In the wake of the cowardly Pahalgam attack, the Prime Minister promised justice, as he said tonight, and a reckoning. And today he told us that every objective, every vow has been fulfilled with precision. Not indiscriminateness, but precision. Terror camps dismantled. Terror commanders blown to smithereens. Pakistan's nuclear bluff/blackmail called out. Pakistan's military infrastructure degraded when they decided to target our innocent civilians in defense, viewers, of the indefensible. And viewers, in the process, India's dominance reasserted. This isn't just retaliation. This is resurgence. India is not a tale of vengeance. It's the anthem of a nation that refuses to bow, viewers. Let's listen in to the Prime Minister.
आतंकियों ने हमारी बहनों का सिंदूर उजाड़ा था, इसलिए भारत ने आतंक के ये हेडक्वार्टर्स उजाड़ दिए। भारत के इन हमलों में 100 से अधिक खूंखार आतंकवादियों को मौत के घाट उतारा गया, जो भारत के खिलाफ साजिशें करते थे। उन्हें भारत ने एक झटके में खत्म कर दिया।
ठीक ना से इंट्रो तो
कोई भी न्यूक्लियर ब्लैकमेल भारत नहीं सहेगा। न्यूक्लियर ब्लैकमेल की आड़ में पनप रहे आतंकी ठिकानों पर भारत सटीक और निर्णायक प्रहार करेगा। हमारी घोषित नीति रही है, अगर पाकिस्तान से बात होगी तो टेररिज्म पर ही होगी। अगर पाकिस्तान से बात होगी तो पाक ऑक्युपाइड कश्मीर पीओके उस पर ही होगी। हमारे सैन्य ठिकानों को निशाना बनाया, लेकिन इसमें भी पाकिस्तान खुद बेनकाब हो गया। पाकिस्तान की तैयारी सीमा पर वार की थी, लेकिन भारत ने पाकिस्तान के सीने पर वार कर दिया। 10 मई की दोपहर को पाकिस्तानी सेना ने हमारे डीजीएमओ को संपर्क किया। तब तक हम आतंकवाद के इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर को बड़े पैमाने पर तबाह कर चुके। हमने पाकिस्तान के आतंकी और सैन्य ठिकानों पर अपनी जवाबी कार्रवाई को अभी सिर्फ स्थगित किया है। हमारे मेड इन इंडिया हथियारों की प्रामाणिकता सिद्ध हुई। आज दुनिया देख रही है 21वीं सदी के वॉरफेयर में मेड इन इंडिया डिफेंस इक्विपमेंट्स, इसका समय आ चुका है। साथियों, हर प्रकार के आतंकवाद के खिलाफ हम सभी का एकजुट रहना, हमारी एकता हमारी सबसे बड़ी शक्ति है। निश्चित तौर पर ये युग युद्ध का नहीं है, लेकिन ये युग आतंकवाद का भी नहीं है। टेररिज्म के खिलाफ जीरो टॉलरेंस, ये एक बेहतर दुनिया की गारंटी है। साथियों, पाकिस्तानी फौज, पाकिस्तान की सरकार जिस तरह आतंकवाद को खाद पानी दे रहे हैं, वो एक दिन पाकिस्तान को ही समाप्त कर देगा।
Well, viewers, let's open this up to decode the Prime Minister's speech. The Prime Minister's speech that will have silenced all doubters tonight, viewers. Because that's the tone. We have with us, perhaps, a preeminent panel, the best minds that we can possibly assemble. But I want to bring in one special guest, one-on-one, tonight. And that's General VP Malik, who was India's former army chief. And of course, viewers, hero of the Kargil War. General Malik, on this historic day, first of all, let us congratulate our forces for the marvelous work they have done, for their selfless courage and their resolve. So we're all here only because of them, and because of people such as yourself, sir, who have built the Indian Armed Forces around unwavering discipline and ironclad it with unwavering resolve. So thank you, sir. Thank you personally. But General Malik, after the Prime Minister's remarks, can there be any question that this is a massive victory and India brought Pakistan to its knees? A nuclear weapons state, paradigm redefining doctrine.
Good evening, Rahul. Thank you for asking me to be on your panel. First thing I must say, after listening to the Prime Minister's speech, probably one of the best that I have heard under the circumstances that we are in currently. I thought it was very forceful, very assertive. It indicates or it showcased the national morale, national resolve, national capabilities. And this was not only addressed to Pakistan, I believe it was addressed to all the capitals in the international community. And I'm sure it will echo wherever people are suffering from or indulging in terrorism. It was primarily on terrorism. And he has put across all the capabilities that we have acquired, the kind of supremacy that we have over Pakistan, and what we have done and what we are capable of doing. And as you said, or somebody else said, he has also benaqab kar diya Pakistani military ko, made it very clear that there is not much difference between the terrorists and those who are sponsoring from Pakistan. And he has addressed them also. And I think this was a very strong message. One more thing that I liked was there was absolutely no mention of the third country. Some people, they were taking credit for making us, for this ceasefire that has taken place. And I'm glad that he made no mention at all, because whatever has happened, it has happened primarily on our own strength.
Yes.
And there is absolutely no question of taking any orders or any, suggestions from foreign countries who want to become broker between India and Pakistan. We cannot permit that. So, as he said very clearly, that we are now in a new normal. We have the capabilities. We have our own weapons, not just the imported weapons, but our own weapons to fight for our country against terrorism and against those people who sponsor terrorism. And the other thing, he very clearly he said that there will be no nuclear blackmail. You know, right from Kargil war onwards, I have been saying that there is a possibility, there is space between the nuclear threshold and the kind of proxy wars that are going on. And that space can be utilized by our combat, our forces. And that's what we have done now also. And that is the indication again he has given.
What prevented us from doing this earlier, sir?
Don't ask me, because since 2016, there has been a slowly but surely a shift in our policy towards terrorism against Pakistan. You remember what we did after Uri,
yes,
after what happened in Pulwama, and this today Operation Sindoor is probably the strongest message, as I said, not only to Pakistan, but to whole international community. And what I also liked was, he said that Operation Sindoor is not yet over.
yes,
We are still prepared, and in case anybody else tries to do some, Pakistan tries to indulge in something else, well, it's not over yet for us, and we can continue to hammer them if required. So there were a lot of messages which I'm sure has affected the morale of the armed forces. They must be very happy to hear this from their Prime Minister, and it must have raised their morale sky high. And so would be all the 140 crore
Indians.
Our own citizens.
Yes.
You can imagine the feeling amongst the citizens of our country. So it has raised everybody's morale. And also he said that we should remain united. I think that's another important message when we have to fight such combat our situations, security situation that we have today on all sides. We have to remain united. So as far as I am concerned, I think it was one of the best speeches that I have heard, with very clear messaging
General
to
Saab,
Pakistan and well. Yes.
My question to you, I know I have to let you go, but one more question. Would you agree that history will testify to how India redefined the rules of engagement between nuclear powers? This is something that I want to get into.
Yeah, again, as I said, look, nobody should be talking loosely about nuclear weapons.
Of course.
That's first thing that I must say that. And no responsible nation talks so much about it. Unfortunately, Pakistan has been talking about it again and again. But then, as we have seen, in fact, from Kargil war onwards, I have been saying that, look, there is space. The first instance where two nuclear nations hit each other or had a war was between China and Russia long ago in the Suri River region. That was the first time it happened. And this is the second time that it has happened, or rather third time, because the second time was probably Kargil war. And this is the third time. So one has been studying all these aspects. One has been studying what has happened. And I felt that there is space between the nuclear threshold and the kind of grey war activities which are going on. And today also, it's not what we have done today. It's not a conventional war. It is much below that. You can call it limited war. You can call it grey warfare, things of that nature. Now, this will carry on, but this also has the space to counter them. And this is what we have done. Now we have, I would say, we have formed a new military doctrine, as far as I am concerned, against counter-terrorism. On that. There is a new military doctrine which has now come about based on the political mandate or political will that has been indicated.
General, thank you very much. The words that General VP Malik signed off with is political will, viewers. Thank you, General Saab. Thank you for sparing time with us. Thank you. Let's open this up. It's political will at the end of the day. Remember, viewers, there's been a barrage of criticism of the Prime Minister over the last 24 hours. Nalin is here and Sushant Sarina here. I want to first bring them in, Brahma Chalani also. Let's just bring in the three experts, including, of course, Mr. Raja Gopalan. But I want to first begin with Sushant, just to get a sense, really, of the statements that Prime Minister has made on the military operations. Now, would you agree, Sushant, that Operation Sindoor has established a new normal? That it's not over, as the Prime Minister said. There is no peace agreement, for example. This is, in fact, a short leash. It's a declaration of deterrence and a promise that nuclear blackmail will not stand in between India and a punishing riposte. And if you do agree, then can we conclude that the Prime Minister has blown away doubts that India sued for peace? Because this is a primary charge against him.
The charge that India sued for peace is the most contemptible lie ever. Simple fact of the matter is, who picked up the phone to call whom? That should tell you everything. Okay, so this nonsense that it was India which picked up the phone to call up the Pakistanis. No way. We didn't call up JD Vance. JD Vance was calling us up. JD Vance was calling up the Pakistanis. And when they were trying to talk to us, we said, if the Pakistanis want to talk, ask them to talk to us directly. We are not going to talk through you. We have not accepted any third-party mediation. Trump can say whatever the hell he wants to say. It has no meaning, nothing whatsoever. And if you don't trust what I'm saying, you will find out in the next coming days and weeks whether Trump or anybody else has any role to play. Secondly, I don't think you should play down the significance of the speech made today. It is very clearly the enunciation of India's new doctrine, and this doctrine, of course, applies substantially on Pakistan. But I can assure you that there are elements of this doctrine that also apply on that budding terrorist nation on our eastern border, which is Bangladesh, which has also been flirting with some of these terror groups. Some of those clowns out there, part of that clown in chief, Yunus, his advisors, who have been threatening that if India has a dust up with Pakistan, then they will tear apart India's northeast. Let them try. Let's see what these bloody Kanglustanis do. Okay, so I think that doctrine has been very firmly established. Number three, I think this is my considered opinion. No government stays forever. Maybe 5 years from now, 10 years from now, a new government comes into office. I don't see how any government can walk back from the doctrine that has been enunciated today. I think this nation looks for a robust response to merciless acts of terrorism perpetrated by state actors. And please, I think we should give up this term non-state actors. There are no non-state actors when it comes to terrorism. Organizations like the Lashkar-e-Taiba, Jaish-e-Mohammed, Hizbul Mujahideen, these are all state organizations. These are all organizations that survive and thrive because of the patronage and the sponsorship of a state, and that state is Pakistan. The organizations in Bangladesh also survived because of the patronage of the state. The Jamaatul Mujahideen Bangladesh was finished off when the state crushed it. Okay, otherwise it was business as usual for them. So it is very clear that there is no non-state actor, and I think the Prime Minister has very clearly enunciated that we are not going to make this distinction anymore between terrorists and the guys who sponsor them, the guys who encourage them, sustain them. We are going to put them all on the same pedestal and give them the same treatment. Okay, so I think this particular speech is quite path-breaking. Now, if you ask me personally, I would have been happier if the Prime Minister, although in his own way, he has sent out the signals to Trump and everybody else to get off, whatever they are saying, and stop spouting the lies which they are saying, that, they are the ones who tried to bring the two sides together and they are the ones who threatened. There was no threat. I can assure you from the highest quarters, there was no threat of any kind which was made to India. In fact, India had made the threat that anything that comes from Pakistan will be paid back with compound interest.
Yes.
They will be backing down from India. And if I can quote somebody who said, if they fire, we fire back. If they stop, we stop. I think that was a very clear message given to the Americans, right? And to everybody else. Nobody else actually even tried to intervene. So the point is that this speech has been quite path-breaking, but I would have, and maybe that's just me.
Okay.
I would have preferred if the Prime Minister had in very clear terms disabused everybody around the world. Although he did mention, I'm telling the world this, but I would have imagined that it would be, if he had probably made a somewhat more
pointed. I understand. A pointed reference to this character. I understand what you're saying. Okay, let's move this conversation forward. It's a good point. Let's move the conversation forward. I just want to quickly bring in Brahma Cheleni as well as Nalin Mehta. Nalin Mehta, very quickly, what do you make? Look, at the end of the day, I think the Prime Minister has taken political ownership of Operation Sindoor, and he has decided that he has sent out a message to the world that, look, India stands for a certain set of values. You mess with us, you're going to pay the price. Whether you're a nuclear weapons power or not, which was not the case. You heard General V.P. Malik. He said this new way of thinking, this political resolve didn't exist before 2016.
Rahul, this was a speech of unambiguous strength, of strategic clarity, and a very no-nonsense tone. And I think that tone really stood out for me. This speech happens in a context where for the last 2 days there's been a lot of consternation in this country about Trump's statements, about the narrative that has happened. Unlike Balakot or unlike Kargil, where at the end of the conflict where there was great euphoria. The euphoria here, when you had your feet on Pakistan's throat, as it were, complete air dominance and the decision to stop and Trump's intervention, that created a lot of confusion. So if you see what's happened in the last 2 days, India has kind of completely grasped the narrative back. There was a very clear briefings by the MEA on what specifically happened behind the scenes as opposed to what the Americans were saying. There was been very pinpointed, strong briefings by the military, by all three services yesterday and today, and then the Prime Minister coming in and kind of sealing the point on that narrative. So to my mind, what the Prime Minister said today, actually, if you there are 3 parts of it. Leave aside the past, look at the forward-looking things he said. He has absolutely laid out a new doctrine. He has said there will be no nuclear blackmail. He's laid out a new policy on terror. He is saying that every time there will be an attack like this, India will respond. He specifically said on the question of talks that there will be no talks with Pakistan. If ever there are talks, they will only be on terror. They will only be on taking POK back. He's repeated the point on water and blood do not mix, terror and water do not mix. And I think he's making a very specific point to the global community too, when he's saying that Bhavalpur and Muridke were global universities of terror. They were linked to major global attacks around, in the last few decades, including 9/11 and the attacks on the London Tube. So this is a speech not just aimed at a domestic constituency, laying out a very clear doctrine, but also to a global community where India is specifically responding to the debate that is unfolded around this conflict in the last 2 days.
I think that's an important point, and I have to say this is not just about retaliation, it's about resurgence, because India did not have to push the envelope, viewers. The Prime Minister could easily have said, look, Operation Sindoor is now over, which means that even the non-kinetic options we are going to sort of relook. We'll come back to the talks table, we'll have a nice dialogue, we'll sit across each other. But no, viewers, he hasn't said that. He said if there is ever a conversation, it's going to be on our terms, because we decide, because of our dominance, we decide the terms of reference, and there are only 2, which is POK, hand it back to us, or very simply, terror. That's it. There are only 2. So Brahma Chileni, let me bring you in. We have paused our strike to observe what Pakistan will do. The Prime Minister made it very clear, this is not a ceasefire. So Trump might be talking about, I have done this and that. By the way, Trump has actually resigned on his position. A few days back, he talked about mediation. Now he says we helped the process. We helped get a conversation started. We didn't help. We didn't forge a deal, we helped. These are his latest words. You can play out the soundbite. I'll pull out in just a few moments. So, Professor, I have to ask you this. How does this translate into a surrender to Trump or an enforced peace? It's far from that.
First, let's be clear on what has happened. There is a clear shift in India's strategic posture toward Pakistan, a paradigm shift. From Modi landing in Lahore unannounced as a peacemaker to Operation Sindoor, there has been a mind-boggling shift in Modi's own thinking and policy toward Pakistan. This is similar to Vajpayee's record. Vajpayee took India on a roller coaster ride on Pakistan, starting with him going to Lahore in a bus, and then subsequently prevailing publicly that his bus to Lahore got hijacked to Kargil. So we have had this dramatic shifts in India's Pakistan policy under successive prime ministers. We saw that also with Manmohan Singh. His peace overtures to Pakistan invited the horrific massacre in Mumbai, and then things changed. Now, with Operation Sindoor, the most important thing for me about Operation Sindoor is that India has once again demonstrated that meaningful military retaliation is possible below the nuclear threshold. Like the surgical strikes after Uri and the Balakot airstrikes, this latest campaign has punctured the myth of Pakistan's nuclear shield, which Pakistan has long used to shelter its strategy of exporting terrorism. So by crossing yet another psychological and tactical threshold, India has redrawn the boundaries of escalation, reinforcing that proxy warfare will no longer go unanswered. But I don't want to put a damper on the celebrations we are having here over Modi's stirring speech. But we shouldn't lock ourselves in echo chambers where we hear what we would like to hear. There are some questions that he didn't answer, the Prime Minister, in his speech. For example, I'm quoting from his speech. He says, India's aggressive countermeasures led Pakistan, quote unquote, he said, quote unquote, Pakistan began seeking ways to de-escalate. Now let's keep the US role aside for the time being. If Pakistan began begging for de-escalation, why did India bail out Pakistan at that critical moment after just 3 days of military operations? Why didn't we take those operations further for another few days, maybe 3 days more, and hammer them more so as to prevent Pakistan from doing what it did 2 days ago, declaring victory at home? Shouldn't we have humiliated the Pak military? After all, you can take out any number of terrorist camps, you can kill any number of terrorists in Pakistan. Terrorists, for the Pakistan military generals, these terrorist proxies are expendable. They're cannon fodder for the generals.
Yeah.
Pakistan is the world's largest terror factory. It'll keep churning out many more terrorists. It can churn out hundreds of terrorists every year if it wants. So killing terrorists by themselves is not going to address Pakistan terrorism. The issue is taking on the puppeteers, not the puppets. So the big unanswered question from Prime Minister's speech is not just that he didn't refer to the US role. He says that Pakistan
you made
began
that point. Yeah.
seeking ways to de-escalate.
Got it.
Without answering as to why we help Pakistan to escape punishment.
Okay, so let Sushant Sareen respond to that. Sushant Sareen.
Rahul, I think it is very clear what the objective of Mission Sindoor or Operation Sindoor was. That objective was to strike at terror camps and terror infrastructure inside Pakistan, which had until now been considered as a red line which simply could not be breached. And the message that India was delivering was that we will come into Pakistan and we will hit the terrorists regardless of where they are in Pakistan, regardless of the geography of, where they are located. Where it will not be limited only to POK. It will be also in what is the mainland Pakistan. We will come and hit you out there. It was not when the operation started, and the main objective of the operation was not an overarching thing that we will completely eliminate terrorism. Have the Israelis who have been at it and who have never relented and who have continued carrying out these kind of operations, have they managed to completely eliminate terrorism? No. Have the Americans managed to do it after occupying countries and bombing the hell out of people and killing hundreds of thousands of people? Did they manage to eliminate terrorism?
No.
So what are we trying to do? We are now putting Pakistan's feet to fire, that we will mete out punishment, we will come in, we will hit you, and until and unless you start curbing these guys and putting them back in the box. Number one. Number two, what was the message we were giving? We were telling them, we are going to hit. If you hit us back, we will hit you even harder. You hit us again, we will hit you even harder. And that is what we did. And if you stop, then we stop. If you continue, we'll continue, and every time we hit you, we will hit you harder. This was the message we were giving.
Okay.
This was not a complete steamrolling operation. It wasn't meant to be that. So I think people need to be a little realistic about what this operation was meant for.
Yeah.
Now
there is an impression.
Shahzad is absolutely right.
Yes.
Shahzad is absolutely right. There were many people on Twitter. Many Twitter warriors were saying कि पाकिस्तान को बिल्कुल आप ध्वस्त कर दीजिए, अखंड भारत बना दीजिए. Point is this: look at the history of this country on cross-border terrorism. The first time you had declared surgical strikes was after Uri in 2016.
That's right.
In public strikes. The second time you had air strikes, which was after Balakot. This time you've had strikes across an entire spectrum of the Pakistan border, across the IB, not just the LOC. You've completely destroyed the airfield. You've completely had air dominance. Our air defense has held up, defending our space, while their air defense got destroyed. This is a paradigm shift in our military positioning. and in our military posture and in our military doctrine. I think we should give credit where it's due. The point was not to get locked into a forever war, because you're also at a time when global supply chains are shifting. There is a shift happening from China to here. You get locked in a forever war in pursuit of some kind of euphoria, short-sighted euphoria. You're also going to damage India's long-term interest. I think Modi made a very interesting point today that भारत का शक्तिशाली होना बहुत जरूरी है और शक्ति का इस्तेमाल करना भी कभी-कभी जरूरी है. But Shakti is not just military strength; it's also economic strength.
That's
so
right.
India has made a military point, but there's also an economic point to be made.
We got to this place because we are no longer fragile five, we're top five, we've had resources, we've put them out there transparently to build our effectiveness. And that's why, as General VP Malik says, after 2016, there has been a change in our strategic culture, which was not visible before, and he should know it better because he was there in Kargil, viewers. He dealt with other governments. He knows what held us back. He was being very politic. He's not the type of person who's going to bandy words. But let me just bring in the Congress point of view here. Sanjay Jha is here with us. Sanjay Jha, your party has accused the Prime Minister of succumbing to US pressure, declaring a premature, cessation of military hostilities, letting Pakistan off the hook. You've said Indira Gandhi would never have done such a thing. She was a great tall leader. She divided Pakistan. First of all, are we making too much of the Indira Gandhi comparison? Because that time the war was different, the situation was different, there were not two nuclear powers. Pakistan was in any case facing an insurrection of a massive scale, which is absent today. There is insurrection, but it's absent today, and there was a whole country or a whole wing that was looking to break away. All you needed was to give them a little bit of support. So on those points, I think we've overplayed that. Would you agree? And secondly, why punish the Prime Minister when he made the objective very clear, that our objective was mitti mein mila denge, the people who have dared to strike terror in the hearts of innocents on our side of the border. He did that. He showed you visible evidence. Pictures are there. Yes.
Rahul, in the interest of a fair debate and I think equal representation of all voices, I hope you'll give me adequate time and not interrupt me. I will not take too long. That's my promise to you. Point number one, I'm so glad that General VP Malik was here at the beginning of your show. I have met him. I have great regard for him, which is why I'm going to quote to you what he actually put out on his Twitter account on the day the ceasefire was announced. And I quote verbatim. This is General VP Malik. Ceasefire. We have left India's future history to ask what politic or strategic advantages, if any, were gained after its kinetic and non-kinetic actions post-Pakistani horrific terror strike in Pahalgam on 22nd of April. I think that echoes with exactly what Dr. Chelani was mentioning some time back.
Professor.
And let us not, for God's sake, get carried away. I'm part of the political ecosystem, but let me just advise everybody here on the panel. Politicians are masters at braggadocio. I think it's time we discuss this issue, and I'm glad, Rahul, you're discussing it. I'm glad you've invited me. I'll take just a minute longer. We need to take a deep breath. The truth is that for the first time, two neighbors who had whatever differences, they tried to resolve it bilaterally. Yes, there was international intervention even in the past. Nobody's denying it, but there were back channels. Here you had President Donald Trump literally put it out on Twitter or X saying that a ceasefire negotiation has been done. Vice President J.D. Vance talked about his conversation with Prime Minister Modi. And as Dr. Chilani rightly mentioned, it was, and let's be categorical about it, let's not pussyfoot around, this a very abrupt, out of the blue ceasefire when India looked formidable was definitely under US pressure. And I think this is the job that we need to actually ask questions of a government. Point number one. Point number two, Uri happened, we had a surgical strike. That did not stop Pulwama from happening, and we had Balakot. Did that stop Pahalgam? So, the biggest issue that we are ignoring here, Rahul, and you are someone who takes a great deal of interest in national security. Have we truly destroyed the terrorist infrastructure in Pakistan? You have some experts on your show. I think Dr. Chilani is the best man to answer that. I mean, Jaish-e-Mohammed and Lashkar-e-Taiba, they have camps all over Pakistan, and Pakistan occupied Kashmir. Not everything is out there in visible aerial attack vision. So for anybody here to assume, and I got this message from the Prime Minister's speech that I heard on your program, again, the same mistake that we did when we were talking about normalcy in Kashmir.
Okay.
That terrorism is obliterated. This is a long-term battle. I agree with Sushant that terrorism cannot be obliterated overnight. There are snakes in the backyard of Pakistan, but those snakes, those horrific reptiles are going to sneak into our gardens, and we cannot afford to be anything but circumspect. My third and final point, like it or not, Rahul, I think this is a matter of concern. Pakistan has managed to get Kashmir on the global conversation table all over again. The truth is that India has been a victim of their strategy of 1,000 cuts for a long time. We have all suffered. All political parties have made terrible blunders to allow that to happen, including the Congress. I'm not going to shirk away from saying that. But I do believe that we need to recognize today that Pakistan has put Kashmir back on the map. And I'm extremely concerned that the Prime Minister did not openly repudiate what Donald Trump said. Don't make insinuations here. Donald Trump in his tweet has mentioned India categorically and talked about discussing a range of issues at a neutral site. The Prime Minister has to say, we don't agree with the United States. We don't agree with Donald Trump. You've got to be categorical and explicit.
Well, there is a time and place to put those messages out. This was one second. This was a message for Pakistan. This was a message for India. This was a message for our position. Yes, I'm just coming to you, Karan. Just give me 30 seconds. Now, Mr. Jha, you said you have great regard for General Malik. You've also been on this show and you've said that you have great regard for Shashi Tharoor, somebody who you say should have actually been the president of the Congress party and not Kharge. You have said this yourself. So had we had him as the president of the Congress, Nalin, this is what Shashi Tharoor would have said. He said, we had reached a stage where the escalation was needlessly getting out of control. Peace is necessary for us. The truth is that the circumstances of 1971 are not the circumstances of 2025. There are differences. This was not a war that we intended to continue. We just wanted to teach terrorists a lesson, and that lesson has been taught. I'm sure the government will continue trying to identify and track the specific individuals who did the horrors of Pahalgam. This was his nuanced position. Do you believe that this is a position that the opposition should actually subscribe to, or do you feel that Shashi Tharoor, as well as Mr. Chidambaram, by the way, in a signed piece that he wrote for the Indian Express echoing this gentleman, do you think both of them are being deliberately ignored by the Congress because they want to politicize this issue and score a few points against the Prime Minister?
So in my view, the point that Shashi has been making are strategically very apt. Many people have called him the right man in the wrong party at the moment, somewhat mischievously. But I would say that, look, I think India operates in a very difficult international environment. We've seen what's happened with Trump. We've seen the position that many of the other countries have taken. But in the way this government is negotiating at the moment, I think we should give it the government space because we are acting on our own terms. Yes, the ceasefire has happened, but if you see Modi's messaging today, I think it was a very stark, clear message. It was a much needed message, may I add, because we've had off-the-record briefings. You needed to have an on-the-record statement from the head of state, and that has happened.
And he has come out publicly committing himself to further action, an all-out war, if there is.
I would argue that he's also rebuffed Trump in specific ways in terms of mediation and so on.
He said this may not be an era of war, but this is also not an era of terrorism. So he's told Trump that, listen, buddy, we will look at this from our lens. We will put, as he said, nation first. So you can go. And look, this Trump business, viewers, we need to look away from this Trump business a little bit. Trump has lied, viewers, to his public, to his own citizens. He has been so irresponsible as to state that Canada is the 51st state of America. He has renamed a part of the waters in the Caribbean, viewers, He is now threatening to do so in another part of the world, in West Asia. He wants Greenland. I don't think anyone really takes Trump as a credible voice anymore. His opinion ratings, viewers, are the lowest for any president at this stage in a term. He just spent 100
Rahul,
days
may
in
I
office.
make another point? You know, Indira Gandhi was trending on Twitter for the last 2 days. May I make a point that 71 was a great military triumph of historic proportions, but the aftermath of 71 was also a strategic defeat.
That's true.
In terms of the fact that you had 93,000 prisoners of war who went back. Field Marshal Manekshaw is on record to have said later that Bhutto took us for a ride. This idea of the Treaty of Versailles syndrome, which was kind of animated the Simla Accord. You left 54 prisoners of war there. Most likely 93,000 prisoners went. In three or 4 years, you had an emergency after that. So there was a big political fallout which was not in consonance with the magnitude of the military victory in 71.
Okay, let's get another political view. Let me bring in Karan Verma on this. Karan Verma, you've been very, very forthright in your analysis. Why don't you bring it out for our viewers?
So I think, Rahul, to begin with, this is one of the most direct and one of the finest articulated proclamations, declarations that I've heard from a Prime Minister. And I think this is a watershed moment in a lot of ways. It has forever changed our threshold. It has changed the doctrine of defense for India. And the message was loud and clear even when he wished Budh Purnima. It's bhai bin hoy na preet. The path to peace goes through strength. And that is what we need to understand as far as our Shatra spirit is also concerned. Our friend Sanjay Jha here mentioned a lot of things. I think nobody more than Sanjay Jha has rebuffed Donald Trump time and again. The guy says there are alternate facts. So Donald Trump, I think Prime Minister Modi here, this was an indirect slap to him as well. He didn't dignify him with a response. Trump is known for trash talking, the Prime Minister isn't. He had a lot of things that he wanted to address. And how clear was he in calling out the nuclear bluff, in talking about POK and telling them that, look, you know, you are just on hold. If ever you cross the line, you know what's coming your way. There's more hell and fire. And for all those who are saying, you know, we could have done more, fine. That opinion is welcome. But let's understand, we are a 4 trillion economy. Theirs is a bankrupt, pauper, terrorist nation. So when we deal with a lumpen who comes on our door, we slap him and send him away. We don't wrestle with a pig and reduce to that level. We have a lot more to achieve. And that is precisely what the Prime Minister here has articulated. He has set the benchmark high. It doesn't change overnight. The last 10 years, the way we've invested in our defense budget has gone up 2.5 times. The production that we've done, it's gone up 3 times. 300 times our export has increased. So this man has walked the talk. We've reached a certain level where we can exercise and assert our strength. I am glad we have a Prime Minister like this who's at the helm of affairs, who knows when to strike and when to maintain a tactical advantage and focus on other things. I think we are in very safe hands and there's more to come.
Okay, just Sanjay Jha, before I bring in Mr. R. Rajagopalan, he's been waiting. So I'm going to give you 30 seconds. Sushant also after that, but Mr. Rajagopalan, very quickly, since he hasn't had a word, I'm sure you'll agree that we should give him at least a little bit of time.
Later,
Yeah, Mr. Rajagopalan, look, there is one thing that I want to get out of the way, this Trump business of addressing Trump directly, this, that, the other. Now, Trump has said he knows, Mr. Rajagopalan, the art of the deal, that he's going to get these guys and he's going to solve Kashmir. The Prime Minister has told him Kashmir is not on the table. POK is on the table. So I'm sorry, but out.
Very, 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 very emotional speech of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. And I would like to say he has enunciated a new doctrine, as General Malik was saying. It's a Modi doctrine, like, you know, Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas. Now he has put no trade with terrorism, no water with blood. So this type of enunciation. Second thing, Rahul, what CWC, Congress Working Committee, passed a resolution. The same thing Mr. Narendra Modi echoed it today. And second thing, Shashi Tharoor and P. Chidambaram articles and pronunciations are against Congress, against Rahul Gandhi's set of rules. Second, as you said, Mr. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has brought the unfinished task, the last task of Mr. Narendra Modi after the abrogation of 370, triple talaq, Waqf board, Ram Mandir, etc. This POK, he has put the POK in the pedestal, in the international pedestal. POK is that. Now you talked about Trump. You yourself mentioned that Trump, we cannot mention a very, very, entertainer word. We should rest Mr. Trump like that because Prime Minister ignored Trump. He did not speak about a word about Trump. Prime Minister did not mention about the ceasefire. It is the call which came from DGMO of Pakistan, not from the Trump. He did not mention that. Though there were behind the scene talks, but in totality is an emotional speech, political speech, and he smashed Congress in one go.
Okay. Should
Rahul
Sanjay Jha, should we settle for Rahul's views or Chidambaram and Tharoor's views? Both Chidambaram and Tharoor have been in government. Rahul Gandhi, Rahul Gandhi never been in government. He doesn't know how government works. He doesn't know anything about negotiating an agreement or being in the same room. When it comes to negotiating an agreement, he's never held office. Why should we choose Rahul Gandhi over the considered wisdom of Chidambaram, who's been a Union Home Minister, and Tharoor, who's been an MOS External Affairs?
Yeah. Rahul, in short, and I have 2 points to make. I'll answer your question second. The first and the most important point that we are already beginning to ignore, I don't know why. Pahalgam happened for a reason. There was a clear intelligence and security failure. Even as you and I are talking here, those terrorists have not been captured. And from what is being speculated, they may have gone back to Pakistan.
I know. One second.
Can you
now
imagine the enormity of that failure?
No one is denying,
and I think
sir.
if we don't ignore that reality,
no one is ignoring it. No one. I am the first one. 1 second. I'm the first one.
Living in a fool's paradise.
Okay, let's not get into this back and forth. I'm the first one who's come out and said on the first day that this was security failure. But viewers, let's also not forget that Israel.
I mean, that's a trigger for everything that has happened.
Israel's October 7th was also a security failure. They decided, in their wisdom, that look, we'll park that issue. We will come to accountability after we face and we get through what we need to do first. So, we will keep putting pressure. The opposition is there to do that. They must take this up in Parliament. No one stops them. But I can't still understand. Sushant Sareen, who is Rahul Gandhi? He's a member of Parliament and the leader of the opposition who's never held office. He doesn't know how things work. There are two individuals from his own party, Tharoor and Chidambaram, leading lights, members of his inner circle. They're broken from him. So I don't understand. Who am I supposed to believe here, Sushant Sareen?
Listen, I don't know if anybody in the Congress party knows whom they need to believe or whom they need to listen to. But I don't want to get into what Rahul Gandhi says or doesn't say. I'll just make 2 or 3 very quick points. One, just to correct Sanjay Jha, Pakistan does not have snakes in its backyard. Pakistan has snakes in its front yard. India has snakes in its backyard, and we know plenty of them. Secondly, I find it touching that people like Sanjay Jha and others, want to trust somebody like Trump, despite all his erratic habits and his saying something one day and turning around and doing something completely opposite the next day, but they don't have any trust or any faith on their own prime minister. So if all these guys are constantly, Trump had said,
the government of India is bowing down to his pressure.
Sanjay, you want to talk, I'll keep quiet. I don't want to talk over you. When you were speaking, I kept quiet. This is just a point. You can rebut me whenever you want to. So there is this thing going on. Number 3, if supposing we had continued to bomb Pakistan for 3 or 4 days more, would we have ended terrorism?
No.
So then, what is this thing that why did we stop? Then we should have said, let's get into a forever war. Did that make any sense for us at this point in time? Could we have then said, well, if we did it for another 15 days, we would have certainly ended terrorism? No, we would not. Right? We might have ended up with a somewhat completely different situation than what we are thinking about. And finally, it's because Sanjay Jha is dying to rebut me, for all that he's saying, and please don't shift the goalpost from what we are discussing right now, Sanjay Jha. We can keep talking about where those terrorists are, why they have not been caught, what happened on Pahalgam. I can, if Rahul has the time, I don't mind debating you on that. But please tell me, how do you propose we end terrorism once and for all? I don't see any country which has managed. Have the Israelis managed to do it?
No,
Have
I'll
the
tell
Americans?
you. I'll tell you how they did. I'll tell you why. Because
Can
there's a
I
whole
answer him?
ecosystem 5 days ago
Can I answer him?
that made a hashtag called de-escalate trend. This entire ecosystem, viewers, of people who identify themselves with the Congress came out and said de-escalate. And I have the whole names here. I have them right here
Have a
on
fair
this sheet of
conversation.
paper.
Give me a chance to rebut him.
And I'll tell you, no one from the Congress party stood up and said, yes, you're wrong. We have to go all the way. So I've run out of time. All gentlemen, I've run out of time. It's no, hang on. It's 1 minute past 9:50. I've run out of time. The next show has to start with Palki Sharma. I've totally run out of time. Thank you very much for watching, viewers. We'll of course be interrogating these positions all through.
Presented by
हम सभी ने बीते दिनों में देश का सामर्थ्य और उसका संयम दोनों देखा है। मैं सबसे पहले भारत की पराक्रमी सेनाओं को, सशस्त्र बलों को, हमारी खुफिया एजेंसियों को, हमारे वैज्ञानिकों को, हर भारतवासी की तरफ से सैल्यूट करता हूं। हमारे वीर सैनिकों ने ऑपरेशन सिंदूर के लक्ष्यों की प्राप्ति के लिए असीम शौर्य का प्रदर्शन किया। मैं उनकी वीरता को, उनके साहस को, उनके पराक्रम को आज समर्पित करता हूं। हमारे देश की हर माता को, देश की हर बहन को और देश की हर बेटी को ये पराक्रम समर्पित करता हूं। साथियों, 22 अप्रैल को पहलगाम में आतंकवादियों ने जो बर्बरता दिखाई थी, उसने देश और दुनिया को झकझोर दिया था। छुट्टियां मना रहे निर्दोष मासूम नागरिकों को धर्म पूछकर उनके परिवार के सामने, उनके बच्चों के सामने बेरहमी से मार डालना, यह आतंक का बहुत विभत्स चेहरा था, क्रूरता थी। ये देश के सद्भाव को तोड़ने की घिनौनी कोशिश भी थी। मेरे लिए व्यक्तिगत रूप से ये पीड़ा बहुत बड़ी थी। इस आतंकी हमले के बाद सारा राष्ट्र, हर नागरिक, हर समाज, हर वर्ग, हर राजनीतिक दल एक स्वर में आतंक के खिलाफ कड़ी कार्रवाई के लिए उठ खड़ा हुआ। हमने आतंकवादियों को मिट्टी में मिलाने के लिए भारत की सेनाओं को पूरी छूट दे दी और आज हर आतंकी, आतंक का हर संगठन जान चुका है कि हमारी बहनों बेटियों के माथे से सिंदूर हटाने का अंजाम क्या होता है। साथियों, ऑपरेशन सिंदूर ये सिर्फ नाम नहीं है, ये देश के कोटि कोटि लोगों की भावनाओं का प्रतिबिंब है। ऑपरेशन सिंदूर न्याय की अखंड प्रतिज्ञा है। 6 मई की देर रात, 7 मई की सुबह पूरी दुनिया ने इस प्रतिज्ञा को परिणाम में बदलते देखा है। भारत की सेनाओं ने पाकिस्तान में आतंक के ठिकानों पर, उनके ट्रेनिंग सेंटर्स पर सटीक प्रहार किया। आतंकियों ने सपने में भी नहीं सोचा था कि भारत इतना बड़ा फैसला ले सकता।
Hello, Namaskar. This is First Post and you're watching Vantage with me, Palki Sharma. The pause is holding at the border, but going forward, it won't be business as usual. That was the message from Prime Minister Narendra Modi today. He addressed the nation for the first time after Operation Sindoor, and the Prime Minister declared a new normal. No nuclear blackmail, no second chances, and no more talks and cooperation. We will bring you the top highlights from the Prime Minister's speech, also the hard evidence from this operation. We know Pakistan is celebrating after the pause, but we'll show you the ground reality, satellite images that confirm India's successful hits. Meanwhile, Pakistan is peddling photoshopped images and stolen videos. We will bust the lies from Islamabad's press conference. Also, a special report on India's lethal weapon during this conflict, the BrahMos cruise missile. All this and more lined up for you. The headlines first. US President Trump says he is thinking of flying to Turkey for talks between Russia and Ukraine. President Trump has proposed direct peace talks with Kiev on Thursday. President Zelensky says he is ready to meet his Russian counterpart. Putin's offer came after European leaders joined Zelensky in demanding a 30-day ceasefire. Putin and Zelensky have not met each other since December 2019. The Kurdistan Workers' Party, or PKK, announces its dissolution and calls off its armed struggle against the Turkish state. This ends a deadly 4-decade-long insurgency. More than 40,000 people have died in this conflict. The decision is a boost for regional security, as PKK fighters are present in Syria and Iraq as well. Millions in the Philippines vote in the midterm polls. This is an election marked by the feud between President Ferdinand Marcos and impeached Vice President Sara Duterte. Her father and former President Rodrigo Duterte wins the mayoral race